Hello everyone, greetings from Los Angeles. I hope you're doing well. So I was going through my books and I realized that over the last maybe 6 or 7 years, I've been reading and accumulating a series of books by the wonderful institute called Word on Fire, which is a Christian institute led by Bishop Robert Barron. And I counted them, and I have a nice collection now, and I wanted to show them to you. I haven't seen a video on YouTube that shows them all, so I'd like to quickly show the collection. Now, this is all spiritual, religious books. Oh my God, I'm going to click out of this video as soon as I can. Maybe some of you will react like that. That's absolutely fine. But if you're interested, come with me. I'll show you some of these books. Okay, so we are starting from a series that's called The Great Spiritual Classics. And the first one of these is The Confessions by St. Augustine. The format of this book is hardcover. They have a nice ribbon, very good quality, sturdy. Sounds like I'm selling them, but I'm just here presenting them. I'm not getting any money, I just love them. And you can see here the symbol of the Word on Fire Institute. They all have a nice preface and section, a lot of reference material at the very beginning of the actual work. And of course, the Confessions by St. Augustine is maybe the spiritual classic par excellence, because it's so deep and profound and yet modern. I'm planning to do a video together with my friends Jordan Parsons and Dario soon about our body read of St. Augustine's The Confessions. So more to come on that in the next days. The next one, always as part of this Word on Fire spiritual classics, is this gorgeous, really beautiful version of Flannery O'Connor short stories. This includes most of our short stories, if not all of them. I'm going to show the index of the book so you can see which stories are included. But a lot of really the favorite ones, from A Good Man is Hard to Find, to The Displaced Person, to Good Country People, The Violent Buried Away. These are awesome stories written by this Southern genius, Flannery O'Connor. I love also the color they chose for the book, because it makes it stand out from the collection, and with a brighter color. And if there was something that Flannery O'Connor had in her personality as an artist as well, was this vivacity, this brightness, really. So I think it's very appropriate. A really beautiful book. The next one is this one about Catholic social teaching. It's a collection of essays and main writings about Catholic social teachings. So this goes from part 1, that includes several encyclical writings by the Church. So really part 1 is the Church teachings by different popes over the years and over the centuries. And then the second part includes doctrine, scripture, saints, and scholar from St. Thomas Aquinas, Bartolomé de las Casas, even San Damien of Molokai, the famous Belgian priest who went to work with the lepers in Hawaii. And then we have one of my favorites, if not probably my favorite of the last century, which is this one, Orthodoxy by G.K. Chesterton. I love this book so much. I've been able to read it at least 5 or 6 times now. It's so quotable. It's so deep. In some points, it's so dense that it's really difficult to read. In some other points, it's the opposite. It's very light-hearted, funny, and cheerful. This Catholic convert, British Catholic convert, who wrote all the series, Father Brown, the fictional Catholic priest and amateur detective who was solving cases. I know there's been at least a couple of different TV series, if not internationally famous, at least they're famous in the UK. G.K. Chesterton, he died in 1936. Aside from Father Brown, of course, he was also a philosopher, an essayist. He wrote all of his life about many different things, but orthodoxy and maybe a couple of other spiritual books are what he remains most famous in the religious world. Okay, then we have another beautiful classic, this one in black, and that's the St. Benedict collection. The Benedictine rule, of course, is included here, but also some other writings about St. Benedict. For example, the writings of St. Gregory the Great, the life of St. Benedict, and a couple of essays by theologians. It's such a good-looking little book. In total, 160 pages. Of course, St. Benedict was a very ancient monk, relatively speaking. He was born around year 480 in the north of Rome, and he went on to really found the Benedictine order. He founded the great house of Monte Cassino in Italy in 530. During his years in Monte Cassino, St. Benedict worked on his regula, or the rule, for his communities, which became the base, really, the main stone upon which many monasteries in the West based their life. So the Western development of monasticism owes a great deal to St. Benedict and to his work. Next book, still in the series of the great spiritual classics, is this one, Red for the Seven-Story Mountain, classic of American Catholicism by Thomas Merton. This is a modern classic, in fact, and the Seven-Story Mountain is the mountain that the title is talking about is the mountain of Purgatory. The author, Thomas Merton, who was a Trappist monk, wrote many other books, but this one in particular is considered his masterwork. Also because probably he felt it much more closer. He talks about his own life in relation to his own conversion and to his own opening to God and to the Christian life. Thomas Merton was heavily influenced by Eastern philosophy and Eastern spirituality in particular, and that's why in his introduction to the book, Bishop Robert Barron says perhaps the central theme of all of Merton's writings is contemplation. And this motif is massively evident in the Seven-Story Mountain in this book. What is stressed over and again in regard to this crucial practice is that it's not the exclusive preserve of spiritual athletes, like monks or Trappist monks, but rather something that belongs to humanity, to all the baptized, and that stands at the heart of Christian life. Then we have a couple more from this series. One is The Life of Christ by Bishop Fulton Sheen. It's a slightly darker shade of red, as you can see here. Fulton Sheen was a bishop, a first-rate academic, a radio personality, a TV personality, and one of the most successful evangelists of the 20th century. And in this Life of Christ, this is basically a work that brings all of his gifts together. As the introduction says, the organizing principle of Life of Christ is the death of Jesus on the cross, the act by which the sins of the world are taken away. Commencing in the early modern period and continuing through the time when Fulton Sheen composed this book, scholars had proposed any number of interpretations of Jesus. A social reformer, a revolutionary, a mystic-driven, mad by eschatological fantasies, a man for others, or a teacher, etc. Sheen wouldn't deny that there is truth in some of all these characterizations, but he claims that they all, to varying degrees, miss the essential point, the one thing that truly matters about Jesus. And I'm going to leave this suspense in case you want to read Life of Christ by Fulton Sheen. And finally, in brown, the Word on Fire Institute has published an essay on the development of Christian doctrine by Cardinal John Henry Newman, which is another really classic spiritual text of the Catholic doctrine. Let's quickly move on to other publications by the Word on Fire Institute. This one is The Pivotal Players, 12 Heroes who Shaped the Church and Changed the World. These are brief essays, brief overviews of 12 saints from St. Thomas Aquinas, St. Benedict, St. Francis of Assisi, with a lot of great illustrations and with a very discoursive and very easy to read style that are especially useful if you would like an introduction to the life of each one of these saints. And then, of course, you can go and find a proper biography if you're interested in one instead of the other. Okay, then we have Light from Light, which is a standalone publication by Bishop Robert Barron that is a theological reflection on the Nicene Creed. It's a 190 pages reflection and explanation of the Christian Creed, or as it's called, the Nicene Constantinopolitan Creed, because it's largely based on the results of the Council of Nicaea that took place in 325 AD, and there was slightly elaborated or slightly developed later on, I think in 385, in the Council of Constantinople. So, sentence by sentence, this book allows us to shed light in the creed that we repeat at least every Sunday at Mass, or in every Mass, because it's important to know what you're saying and to avoid being just a sheep repeating words that you don't know the meaning of. There is a lot of depth in the creed and really is the perfect framework of Christian theology, let's say the skeleton of Christian theology. Then the Word on Fire Institute has published the Pope Benedict XVI Reader, a beautiful book that is including a lot of Pope Benedict's speeches, essays, and works. For me personally, Pope Benedict Joseph Ratzinger is one of my intellectual heroes, so I love this book in a particular way. But and I would suggest it to anybody, even non-Christian, who would like to understand what Christianity is about at its most philosophically sophisticated. Then this is a book that is a little bit weird, maybe, or uncommon in this list of titles, but it's still being published by the Word on Fire Institute, and it's titled Jordan Peterson, God and Christianity: The Search for a Meaningful Life. I bought this book without knowing much about it, and I was really amazed, really surprised by how great it is and how great I found it. This is not a book written by Jordan Peterson. You probably have heard his name. He is a Canadian psychology professor who is been very active and vocal on YouTube and on social media with his lessons about the Bible taken from a non-religious point of view, and lessons about a little bit of everything. It doesn't matter whether you like the guy and what he has to say or you don't. The point of this book is to try and find the connections between Jordan Peterson's message, which has seemed to resonate a lot with people all over the world in the last few years, and Christianity, because he talks a lot about Christianity in his speeches, conferences, etc. The person most responsible for reintroducing God and the Bible into mainstream secular culture today is not a pastor, a scripture scholar, or a bishop, but a psychology professor with no church membership. Jordan Peterson's lectures and writings on psychology, philosophy, and religion have been a cultural phenomenon. And yet, Peterson's own thought is marked by a tensive suspension between archetype and reality, between the ideal of Christ and the God who acts in history. He says about himself, "I try to live as if God exists, without really embracing Christianity, without embracing faith of any kind, at least so far. So the authors of this book, who are two theologians, draw readers into the depths of Peterson's thought on Scripture, exploring both the points of contact with Christianity and the ways in which faith fulfills Peterson's project. It's a book that I would recommend to absolutely anybody because of how profound and well written it is. Finally, I'm going to present this thick book. It's called Food for the Soul by Peter Kraft, who is a great American theologian, Catholic theologian. This book is a collection of reflections for the Mass readings, for the Sunday Mass. In fact, I use them to prepare my own Sunday Masses. For each of the 3 readings for each Mass, Peter Kraft has something to help us deepen and to understand and have the readings articulated and explained. I believe this is for the cycle C, which is the one that we are in this year in 2022, but I believe Peter Kraft and Word on Fire have agreed to produce 2 more of these books for the cycle A and cycle B. It's a cycle of 3 years that repeats itself. And if you're not excited enough so far about all these Christian books and all these Catholic books, I'm going to show you this little booklet which is called Centered, the Spirituality of Word on Fire. It collects a lot of short essays or even maxims and quotations by Bishop Barron, and in a really short little booklet summarizes what the spirit of the Word on Fire Institute is, which is a spirit of evangelization in the culture, using social media, using the so-called new media, and also using beauty. Bishop Robert Barron puts a lot of interesting focus on beauty as something that draws us naturally to the spiritual and to the divine. This is why the books they produce, but in fact I would say everything that they produce has this quality of beauty, is beautiful. They've been publishing a version of the Gospel and the New Testament in 2 books that is really gorgeous. That's a project that I think will continue going, because it's called the Word on Fire Bible, and so far what they have published are the Gospels, which this is the hardcover copy. There is also a beautiful leather copy with gilded pages and everything that is also available. And to complete the New Testament, this second book, which is called Acts, Letters and Revelation, that's been published recently, together with the text, the sacred text and the scriptures. These books include essays, paintings, commentaries, doctrine, so much richness and beauty as well, because there are reflections on works of art that have to do with a particular passage of the New Testament that help you understand and reflect on what you're reading. Anyway, so if I still have maybe 1 or 2 viewers at this point, I will be really lucky and happy. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope you found it somewhat interesting and useful. Bye.